We should get in alignment with the very technology that keeps us alive and functioning in our lives. If we didn't ever get sick, we would die much, much sooner. In a world dominated by conventional models and antibiotic use, it is critical to rethink our approach to health, especially when it comes to conditions like strep throat, but really any acute sickness, or better put, as I say, expressions of health. These symptoms are not bad, okay? They are innate expressions of a body adapting and disposing of waste from the body. I haven't taken an antibiotic, thankfully, my entire adult life, and I'm in the same world that everybody else is in. I have colleagues and friends that have never given their children antibiotics, and they attend the same schools as other kids do. Believe it or not, this is possible. Not only is it possible, in my opinion, it's necessary to avoid these drugs as much as humanly possible. This is the case with anything in life. If we are off track, okay, we must first backtrack and understand the wrong turns that we took. We have to understand what sickness is, what we call sickness. If we do not first do that, we're going to continue to go in circles, looking for a way out and chasing our tail. We can't discuss real solutions when our paradigm, as I always say, is off and our compass is poorly calibrated. So here are the steps to supporting these expressions of the body if and when they come up for you and your child. First, let's dissect the symptoms commonly attributed to strep, all right, and other acute expressions. So swollen lymph nodes, sore throat, fever, increased swelling and heat in these areas, redness, pain, and sometimes loss of appetite. These are not microbial problems. They are signals from the body that the body is eliminating accumulated waste, for one, okay? Understanding this code red, as I call it, okay, the body is like, all right, we have to get these things out. This is essential. You have to understand what the body's doing. And in most cases, very, very little may even need to be done. You just need to simply allow and support. Okay, so let's talk about some of these symptoms. Fever and heat, hypothermia. The body's natural distillation process, liquefying the cellular matrix to expel contaminants through our elimination pathways, especially sweat in the case of fever. Think of it as a gentle distillation process happening in your body. The impurities are literally distilled out. How about pain? This is a sign that the tissues are expanding to handle the burden. Then they are broken back down, repaired during this deep restoration phase. How about swollen lymph nodes? Indicative that the body is addressing backed up sewage. Your lymph nodes are little garbage dumps. What happens if your garbage overfills in your home? You need to pack it up, you clean up around it, microbes break down the trash, and then it gets shipped out of your house, shipped out, to your town, and then the microbes decompose that garbage back to the earth. Hi guys, if you are enjoying this video, please hit that subscribe button so we can get this information out to more and more people who need it. Also, if you can, click that little bell icon so you are notified every time we have a release of a new episode. How about loss of appetite? This occurs as the body focuses more its energy to that cleanup process. This is a stressful process. Cortisol is higher, your appetite gets suppressed, but the body has to focus on that cleansing and that healing than on digestion. So how do we support this healing process and not impede it? Step number one is to stop treating the microbes. You have to stop treating the wrong things and further burdening the body. This will lead to recurring symptoms down the line, and you'll invariably end up blaming and naming it as strep or an infection or a microbial problem. This is not a microbial problem, as I've covered extensively in the first videos of my strep series. I provided solid literature and research from the very doctors and researchers who study strep. They have also said very similar things, perhaps using different language, of course. As I've highlighted repeatedly, antibiotics do not solve this problem and cause other problems over time. There are long-term health impacts of using these drugs that I'm not so sure can be undone so easily. The body's pretty resilient, but I've seen people have issues for years after taking just a couple rounds of antibiotics. As a reminder, the current National Institute of Health clinical guidelines state there is evidence from randomized placebo-controlled trials that antibiotics have limited efficacy in treating a large proportion of RTIs, respiratory tract infections, in adults and children. These include ear infections, acute cough, acute bronchitis, sore throat, pharyngitis, tonsillitis, rhinosinusitis, sinus infections, and the common cold. These conditions are largely self-limiting and complications are likely to be rare if antibiotics are withheld. However, the issue is that what the research shows and what the guidelines reflect, these very guidelines, this is not what we see in clinical practice most often. I'll also add that simply wanting an alternative to these drugs, that's not going to cut it. You'll hear many people just say, okay, well, what's the alternative to the antibiotics, Steph? You can find an entire list of alternatives to antibiotics on Google if you so want. You're welcome to Google that and easily find it. That's not my purpose here. Alternatives such as garlic, echinacea, oregano, clove, turmeric, olive leaf, golden seal, grapeseed extract, honey. But that is not what I'm going to talk about, because while I love all of these herbs and compounds, they are not antibiotics. They are not anti-life. They are supportive to the entire system to help the fluids move more effectively, provide nourishment, and provide electrical input. So learning a list of natural alternatives or natural antibiotics is a disservice to you, because if you just use these, so-called alternatives and your symptoms don't resolve in the way in which you think that they should, you're going to be reaching for those antibiotics because you have wrongly been led to believe that the symptoms are bad and the symptoms should be stopped and it's dangerous and it could spread to my heart, it could spread to my bone, whatever the so-called infection may be and the story around it. So you have to, again, really understand what's going on and how bodies heal and how bodies express themselves. So I hope you watch the previous videos in the Strep series, because I break that down very, very much in detail. If you haven't done so, check those out after this video. Now, if you do partake in using those drugs and successfully poison the microbes and yourself and your gut and all your mucous membranes, where will that waste go? Because it can't be bioremediated without the microbes and it can't be broken down. How will that waste get further biotransformed without the healthy microbe? It absolutely can't. And then yeast and other more so-called resistant microbes will come in to help solve the crisis, and then we just continue to blame the microbe. Yeast and other more resistant microbes will come in to try to help solve the problem, and then we'll swab that and find that and culture that and say, oh, well, then that's the problem, when in fact that's not the problem. You killing and poisoning the microbes and yourself was partly the problem, among other things in your history. Okay, step 2 is to move your lymph. Since your lymph are little garbage disposals and they're your sewage center to take waste, break them down, bioremediate, and take it out of your body, we have to really support the movement of that. So using manual lymphatic drainage will stimulate your lymphatic flow. So you can use gentle rhythmic motions to encourage the movement of lymph. So you want to start at your collarbones. I've done videos about this. There's many videos out there. So you want to start at the collarbone and open up the clavicular areas here to really stimulate drainage, and then move to your tonsils, move to your ears, move to your face, open up your sinuses, back of the neck, base of the head, your occipital area, and just use short, rhythmic, circular movements. It doesn't have to be fancy. You can use tapping and vibration to stimulate movement. I mean, a vibration plate. These types of things will really get lymphatic flowing. You can also use a natural cream or oil. I really like using castor oil, which will penetrate more deeply into the skin to further stimulate lymphatic flow. Also, dry brushing using a soft, natural bristle brush to gently stroke the skin in the direction of your lymph flow, okay, and using those short movements. The pressure should be very light, short strokes. It depends on, your skin sensitivity. Use the same technique and flow as a lymphatic massage. Also, breathing exercise. Your breath is a huge part of how your lymph moves. Deep breathing exercises can improve lymphatic flow by increasing the pressure in the chest and promoting circulation. So focus on deep diaphragmatic breathing. Also, gargling. Gargling is a way to actively move lymph and toxicants in the tonsils. Not only does it stimulate your neurology with your vagus nerve. So what you want to do is gargle intensely with warm salt water. So you dissolve like 4 teaspoons of a good quality sea salt in 4 cups of pure water. Gargle with it throughout the day. Okay, you can do a gargle that's pretty rigorous. That'll really stimulate the vagus nerve. You'll begin to stimulate your lymphatics and your tonsils right here. Gargle with it about 30 seconds at a time, really ensuring that you reach the back of your throat, and of course, spit it out, don't swallow it. Now, you don't just want to move lymph in the ways that I just described without opening your final elimination pathways, like your skin and your GI and your colon. Moving your lymph around, a mobilizing thing, but having nowhere for it to leave the body is a huge mistake. And I see so many people talking about moving lymph, but they're not talking about how to move the waste finally out. It's kind of like just sweeping a bunch of garbage up in your house and then you never remove the garbage from the house. You know, that's going to lead to a really disastrous problem inside of your home and for your health if you're living inside that home. So make sure you focus on sweating if you're not in an active fever state and moving waste out of the body. So how do we do that? This is step 3, opening that final elimination pathway. So the body has only a few ways to get this stuff out, to unload that mobilized waste that is trying to be biotransformed to make it less damaging. That's what biotransformation is. That's what detoxification is. It makes these compounds less toxic so it can circle and cycle throughout the body and then leave the body. So you need to open the skin and colon pathways. Those are the 2 main elimination methods. So herbal and coffee enemas are great here, even 2 or 3 a day for a temporary period. I have a whole free playlist on enemas on YouTube, and then I also have a $5 comprehensive, like 30 or 40 page guidebook on how to do them properly step by step. This must be done well. It of course needs to be done with care. If your bowels are backed up, your head, neck, and face will not drain well. Dr. Robert Morris talks about the relation between the transverse colon and your sinuses and your lymphatic system up in your head, neck, and face and your tonsils. So you really want to make sure your bowels are moving if you want all of this to drain down and out. Also, sauna can be very helpful if the individual has the energy and it is not dehydrated, not in an active fever state. Like I said, it's critical though not to wait until this type of purge, as I call it, is forced on you. As we all know, it's very uncomfortable when we are sick and it's very painful. It's best to do these supportive therapies periodically. And when the body starts whispering to you, which it always does, that it's getting time for an upcoming trash haul, this often happens in the spring and the fall, you'll know when it's coming if you're really paying attention. You should listen to those little whispers from the body and then start supporting your body so you don't have to go through a really hard, heavy, painful purge. Okay, those purges aren't bad, but they are necessary if you're not taking care of your body throughout the year. Step 4 is to fast and hydrate. Okay, so you want to respond to the body's reduced appetite, which is usually the case, with very simple hydration and electrical foods like fruit, whole fruit, smoothies, 100% fruit juices made at home. I personally prefer lots of fresh made juices during this kind of time, like a 16-ounce juice every hour or 2 hours if possible. It sounds like a lot, but when you get into that state, you really need to hydrate, especially if you're in a fever state. Get plenty of good quality Celtic sea salt, especially again if you are in a fever. Like about 1 teaspoon or so may be needed, you know, under your tongue, let it dissolve. That might be quite a lot for a child, just a little pinch. Drink plenty of water, soothing warm fluids like herbal teas. I love doing lots of different combination herbal teas, broths, warm water with good quality honey, local honey even better. You absolutely do not want to force the body to eat or eat a big meal or eat processed foods because you have no other appetite. Keep things simple, keep things easy to digest, and simply fast on fluids or fruits by and large. If a fever is very, very high for a long period of time and you've been sweating profusely for hours and the person seems to be sort of doing worse, a simple saline IV may be helpful in this scenario. They now have mobile in-home IVs that you can get in many, many cities. You can also use a simple mineral enema in that case to hydrate via your colon, believe it or not. A lot of people think enemas are dehydrating. They can be to an extent, but they also can rehydrate you whenever your body is, you know, looking for fluids to hold on to. It'll hold on to that hydration you use if you use a mineral enema. So how do you make something like that? You would use 4 cups of warm distilled water, just body temperature, do not burn yourself, with 1 or 2 teaspoons of good Celtic sea salt. This makes about a 0.9% saline solution, and never, never, never use Epsom salts, okay? All right, step 5 is to prioritize sleep and rest. This is something that seems to have just gone by the wayside in recent decades. The body conducts its best drainage during sleep, so do not neglect this. You're going to find that you're more prone to being sick when you neglect sleep. If you stay up late, if you are stressed out working and you're finding yourself not getting quality sleep, or if you have disturbed sleep schedule, especially if blue light and green light and all of these artificial lights are impacting you, you're on your phone, you're working late, you're on computers, you're going to find that you are going to get sick more often in that kind of routine. So don't force the body to work or keep commitments if you are in an active purge state. It's time to rest. It's time to get restorative sleep. Step 6 are herbals and supplements. What do I think about this? People who are used to relying on pharmaceuticals will look for a supplement or herb to work for the issue, to stop the symptoms. So plant medicines help charge the cells, assisting momentum of the drainage. But if you wait too long, a supplement or an herb is not going to just solve a massive cleanup problem in a day, in a couple of days. You must do the real work once the cleansing process has started. And herbals can assist in that, but relying solely on supplements or herbs without addressing these underlying cleanup processes is an inadequate approach. So plant medicines support, like I said, your body's electrical charge and movement, but they're not a quick fix. Animals in the wild, you'll see, will consume plant fibers and herbs instinctively as well to support their health or if they are sick. So support like garlic, oregano, clove, echinacea, all these different types that I've already named, they're fine, but they're not going to kill microbes, and they're not just going to kill things off so you no longer have the infection. I generally do not recommend heavy herbal protocols or internal use of essential oils in these times, as it can create more mobilization of waste, and the body's already processing so much, and it needs to first eliminate that mobilized waste first. Okay, if you want to help soften that process for you so the body can process it out in a very smooth way as possible. So you want to focus on ways, okay, how do I get these things out of my body? How do I eliminate better before you just take a bunch of herbs and mobilize even more waste? So less is more, I have found over the years. A little herbal support goes a long way, very, very little, and it doesn't mobilize too much at once. So what herbs do I use? I know people will ask that. I lean towards combination tinctures that are really gentle, they're really effective, such as the Dr. Morse herbs, his lymph 1 and 2, his kidney 1, 2, and 3, his liver herbals. They're all very, very effective. It's also a good idea to take support for the bowels like his GI Renew or his GI Broom. I like taking both of those. You can see the products in the description below. I'll link them up. But all of his products I've had great success with, but whenever you're in an active, acute expression like this, using just a few of his herbs and making sure you're using some of his GI herbs to pull will be a great combination. Now, let's talk about fevers. This is step 7. What do we do when we're in a fever state? So fevers should be discussed because many people are still under the impression that fevers are dangerous or that too high fevers can be dangerous. So fevers are not dangerous. No, not even the higher fevers. They are protective, and a fever by itself is not the cause of any issue. It is the innate solution to issue. Like I said, it's the distillation process for cleansing. Let's take a look at the National Institute of Health guidelines on fevers updated in 2021, and they said antipyretic agents, so fever reducers, do not prevent febrile convulsions and should not be used specifically for this purpose, meaning using anti-fever agents do not reduce the chance of your child having a febrile seizure, which I know a lot of parents are afraid of. They also said that you should consider using other medicines that are not anti-fever, that are not antipyretic agents, if your child appears distressed, to help them soothe and help them have a reduced pain response. But do not use antipyretic agents with the sole aim of reducing body temperature in children with fever. This is what they are saying. Now, throughout the entire clinical guidelines, they recommend to simply help the child stay comfortable. That's it. But to not use fever reducers to stop seizures or to lower body temp, as this is misguided. They explain that the child should be hydrated, kept as comfortable as possible, and monitored for other underlying issues. A fever itself is not a concern. The child should be observed for dehydration and overall alertness. Those are the only concerns. Children's hospitals all over the country are starting to talk about these misconceptions. So let's take a look at Seattle Children's Hospital, their article on fever myths versus facts, and they write that many parents have false beliefs, what they call myths about fever. They think that fever will hurt their child. They worry and lose sleep when their child has a fever. This is called fever phobia. In fact, fevers are harmless and often helpful. Let these facts help you feel better and understand fever. They first write, the first myth, fevers above 104 are dangerous. They can cause brain damage. They say no, the fact is that fevers with infections don't cause brain damage. Only temperatures above about 108 degrees Fahrenheit can cause brain damage. It's very rare for the body temperature to climb this high ever. It only happens if the air temperature is that high. An example is like if a child is left in a closed car during hot weather. They go on to say that another myth is that seizures with fever are harmful. They say, The fact is that these seizures are scary to watch, but they stop within a few minutes. They don't cause any permanent harm. They don't increase the risk for speech delay, learning problems, or increase the risk of future seizures. What else do they say? They said the next myth is without treatment, fevers will keep going higher. They say nope. The fact is, because the brain knows when the body's too hot, most fevers from infections don't go above 103 or 104. They rarely go to 105. While these are high fevers, they are also harmless ones. The next myth they talk about is that the exact number of the temperature is very important. They say no, the exact temperature is not that important. How your child looks and acts is what's important. The exact temperature is not. So there you have it. I hope the fever fear is settled some. Okay, a lot of parents and a lot of people are treating these fevers, and every time you treat a fever, just like every time you use antibiotics, you are suppressing the body's innate response to help clean house, which means in the future you're going to have more and more recurring issues all over your body because the body never was able to unload those trash bins like I talked about. All right, step 8 here is acknowledging the body's wisdom. Stopping the body's natural healing process with an anti-inflammatory drug or an antibiotic or an antipyretic may provide temporary relief, but like I said, this postpones the inevitable. Ignoring the body's signals leads to severe consequences, very, very real, okay, such as cancers or cysts, because that waste never gets disposed of, so the body has to try to contain it in different parts of the body. When we are in this process, it's time to connect. I know it's difficult, okay, but it's time to connect with the body's ways, to observe and to surrender to the process that's underway, that's helping us. We should get in alignment with the very technology that keeps us alive and functioning in our lives. If we didn't ever get sick, we would die much, much sooner. This is a reflective time, okay? Not one to try to stop or rush or suppress at all once it is upon us. So in conclusion here, we so often want to make healing and recovery a complex process. We have the urge to take something, to pop something, to take some form of medicine, whether it's natural or pharmaceutical. But in reality, the body knows exactly what it's doing to heal us. We can just gently assist that process by watching what it does, and at a minimum, just stay the heck out of the way and don't suppress it. Or we can mimic the body's process of elimination and try to gently support that and provide that same type of pathway. If this detox process keeps being forced upon you, if you're finding you get sick frequently with repeated strep throat or infections and these different types of acute manifestations, then you have gone off track prior, and you need to get back to the path where you're in alignment that these symptoms are not bad, that these purge processes and these detox reactions are what the body is trying to do to restore you and really get on track with how the natural world works, including your very body.